And you got to flip your script all the time, be nimble enough to pivot when it's time to do it, and we're doing that now. So some of the things we pivoted on, there was some safety issues here, right? The Congress and the state legislatures have made it easy and for the proliferation of guns, right? I'd be the first one to tell you, well, it's not the gun. Physically, it might not be the gun. It's the people.
Yes, sir.
Put together with the gun. So you can't say one without the other, right? So when they pass these laws, we're left to clean up. So Chief Haynes and I are always on this thing about what's going on here. So we've done a number of things. We've, you see these little cameras around the city on these poles. This thing called flock safety. It is a license plate reader, right? There will be no one that passes through this city. At some point, I don't care if you come in, come out, side street, whatever, there's no way you can get in and get out of here without catching you on the license plate reader. And that system is connected throughout this county. We've got a number of people like that, right? That's helped us, right? So we've done that. There's another technology we rolled out here, it's called Shot Spotter. Because sometimes somebody fires a shot, right, and we wouldn't know where it was at. People would call and say, is it a fire? Is it fireworks? Is it a gunshot? What is it, right? So now this technology we have now will pinpoint it to within a foot, 3 feet, 2 feet, 2 feet. It distinguishes between a gunshot, firework, car backfire. And so we're able to go to the spot, and when we get to the spot, if the person out there, we'll find the casings right here, we'll know that this is where it went down at. And then we combine that with, if you got a ring camera on your house and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
We triangulate everybody that way, right? And the one thing about a criminal, he always gonna slip up. Might take him a little bit, but it's always gonna come up, right? And so the other eyes that we have here, you guys are the eyes of this community. You know what's happening, right? You see it, right? When you see it, don't be afraid to say anything about it. I'll say here, to make sure we continue good safety here, we purchased a number of new fire ambulances in here, right? And so we have armed the fire department with the latest and greatest technology. So if there are emergency calls in this community, we come, and we come correct with all the stuff that we need. So we're making the proper investments that are necessary here, and I would just tell you that those are part of the things that we're doing. Another part of the thing we had, you know, we get a lot of calls about, and Ben Brown talked about this, you know, sometimes we get some folk that move in here, right? That don't understand the rules.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Believe me.
Right, and so there are very clear rules to live in Warrensville. Ask anybody who's been here long, they'll tell you some rules. It's pretty simplistic. Mind your business. Don't disturb the peace. Cut your grass and everything's everything, right? And if you live in an apartment, be peaceful to your neighbor, right? Sometimes we get people to move in this town that don't really understand that because where they coming from, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So there's a little reckoning that needs to go on here, right?
Sure enough.
So as we work to do that between police and building, we also get some folk that, even with a little reckoning, you gotta go the extra mile, right?
All right. All
We heard
right.
that old saying, it's always one to spoil it for everybody. So there was a thing like when we had, that's why Nick Papa's here. So we would cite these people for whatever rowdiness, housing code violation, something that needed to be corrected. That all you had to do was correct and mind your business, right? They still won't do that.
Nope.
So when we got ready to take them into court, we couldn't get them to court. Because if you're in a rental property here, state law passed down in Columbus requires that you have the social security of the person that's the owner and the date of birth. What am I supposed to rent? Ben, that's it, right? Proof of service, we get you on service, but without the date of birth and social security number, we can't prosecute these cases. So there's a string of cases just out here, right? And it's not just Warrensville, it's happening all over, right? So we worked with Keisha's help and Ben's help and Teresa's help, we worked to put a new rental registration program in play here. Just went into effect last week. Let me tell you, I want you to know what it is, because it's not punishment.
No.
It's just what's required, right?
That's all right.
So now when you rent a place, right, whether you, because some of you own some property, you want to rent a place, no problem, we want you to rent a place, right? But don't drop your problem on us, right? You getting rent money is not my thing, right? That's your thing, right? I expect you to vet your tenant, get a better idea of what's going on, and if you got a tenant there, manage the tenant. That's your property, right? So a lot of people rent the place and they walk away from the place because sometimes the people so wild that you be like, I ain't even going over there, right? They don't want to get the money on the first, right? So in this new registration that we have now, whenever you rent a place, apartment, house, whatever, annually you'll get this thing, this new rental registration that you have to pay for up front every year like we've been doing. But there's new documentation you have to fill out. Now you gotta tell me who the owner is, not who the property manager is, who's the owner, date of birth, address, and a number.
Okay.
So now we have a problem. We pull the registration, we take it to Holy Nick Papa. This can at least get adjudicated now.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
And so I would tell you, this thing went off last week. Man, we get all kinds of people calling us. Hey, what you trying to pull here? I ain't trying to pull nothing. Because the ones that were skating the game, they understood what was happening. They were like, wait, this thing is different. Yeah, it's different now because you have to change up on folks, right?
Right.
That's what you ask of me to make sure the place stays right? So it's taken a little while, but we've been able to do that. I do want to say, new things are coming online. The service garage that's down on Miles and Emory, that's owned by the county. I know that Teresa's in discussions now. We're going to acquire that building. That's going to be the city's own building, and then because we're a tenant in now, we're tenant in for the next 8 years, right? So we're going to kind of revamp that with the county and figure out how we can acquire the building, but they're amenable to doing it, so we're going to pursue that. Community development. John Dewey is finalized his last days. Westwood is being torn down now. Eastwood is gone. So that's going into play. And if you didn't know, there was a survey that went out here last week. We are in conjunction working with the collaboration with the school on the John Dewey site. We were awarded a grant by the county to do a study on the John Dewey site. We would like to think about extending Green Road Park to make the park bigger, right? So that there could be more usage by people here, right? So we don't have to break up the fist fights over the gazebo, you know?
All right.
People sitting out there at 6 in the morning, like, I was here first. We walk in there like, can't we all just get along? So we'll do a survey, and even if you live in that neighborhood, this is community-wide. I want your input here, right? You might think it's a bad idea. I don't know, but we're going to start it, right? So we got some money from the county to do it. They're leading charge. So the first thing is the survey that's out. Where's that? Is that survey online? It's out today. It's out today, right? So we're about to get smoking on this thing. So last as I go along here, so there's some other development things going on here. Sherman Williams, we're moving out of here in about 2.5 years, right? So we're working with a developer now who's looking to acquire all of Sherman Williams. So if you didn't know, Sherman Williams has 400 people that work over there now, right? 400. If the entity gets it, that their initial thinking is that they're going to tear down everything over Sherman Williams, right? Because the buildings are old and some of them bad shape, real bad shape. And they're going to do an industrial development, a kicking around idea, and they think that they can do a number of buildings on there, and they think that the total jobs that they'll be able to create at Sherman Williams, remember I said Sherman Williams is 400, they think they can do 2,000 jobs.
Right.
So the 2,000 jobs, I would just tell you, if you live anywhere in the vicinity, these are your jobs. Your kids, your grandkids, that's their jobs, right? Right? And so that's what's looking to come online here, so just be aware of that. We're working at, last I wanted to talk about this, I'm always asked here, seniors always ask me about housing here,
Yep.
right? Always ask me about housing. So I'm gonna ask Nicole and Ramon just to stand with me right here. Because we've been working behind the scenes on a number of things, right? This game is about always mining. You always gotta be mining, right? And it's not TV, it don't happen in 30 minutes. The show don't go off in 30 minutes, right? So you gotta keep digging, try to make some things happen. So Nicole Harris, who's the Director of Economic Development, and Ramon, Community Development Manager, have been mining properly development opportunities here. So we're gonna roll out here sometime here as we're trying to finalize the roadmap. Internally, I've been pushing them to just think outside the box here. There's an affordable housing crisis in this country. So Warrensville is in this country. So there's an affordable housing crisis here. When I say affordable, this is what I said. If you were to build a new house today, it's $300,000 plus for 1,200 square feet and 2 bedrooms. That's just cost. I ain't talking about profit, right? So what is happening now is, even though you can get more money for your house on the sale, if you got it, you don't have nowhere to go because you can't find it out here. So that means most people are staying in their house. You see people fixing up the house, right? I'm just gonna stay right here, right? Not that that's what they want to do, because most people want to liquidate that money out of there and be like, listen, but you can't because you don't have anywhere to go. So we were kind of working behind the scenes here, trying to talk to people doing senior housing. We think we have identified a way, right? I said, we're not ready to go public with it yet, but we think we have identified a strategy here. And if everything comes to fruition here, right, because there's gonna be multiple moving pieces here. Multiple moving pieces. You know me, I'm not afraid to move no pieces, right? I'm not married to nothing, right? I'm like, listen, that was old news, I'm looking for new news, right?
All right.
Because you gotta stay flexible here. If we do this right, I think we will be able to create roughly about 140 new senior housing apartment units with some rent protection in here, so nobody gets screwed over here, right? I think there's a way, because you couldn't make it a single family house because it's 300,000, right? And the senior not gonna be able to do that, right? So there's some strategies here, right? So we think we've identified a strategy to unearth about 140 new units if we do it right. Let me tell you why we're doing that. 140 houses, that gives a senior a chance to recoup their investment, move into a place, right? That puts 140 units potentially on the street, right? That wasn't gonna occur because the superintendent John tell you, he needs new bodies here, right? You need new families here, right? Right? Gotta turn this thing, it's turnover, right? So we do that then she puts 140 houses on the street, and then we looked at identifying new housing opportunity, because some people want new house, they just need to fit into their rent portfolio. Like, so you're paying this much in rent, they need to be close, right? We think we've identified about another 100, 120 units for new housing based upon some of the vacant lots we have available. So if you live in Brentwood, you see us building 4 new houses over there through the county land bank, right? That is a tester model for us to figure out how to put this strategy together. And I would just tell you that I'm not inventing the wheel. This idea I got from the city of Chicago, right? There's ideas and strategies here. When we go to these out-of-town meetings, this is what we get, right? We learned how to do it. So we feel like we can put almost now 250 to 300 housing units out on the street here over a period of years that gives us life. Why we need the new starts? Because if you don't have new starts and new sales at a certain price, they will decrease your value. You know, you get, they look for the comp sales. The comp sales will be down here because they're only good for you for 6 to 8 months, right? So you have to continuously flip over. So there's a strategy here on that. You'll hear more about that as we go forward. But you'll see those houses in Brentwood. They're coming online. I think they're going to open up here shortly for tours and everything else. The last thing is about here. The challenge is we got to stabilize some of these neighborhoods. There's 2 neighborhoods I'm keenly focused on. Banbury, Miles Landing. And the other is, and the superintendent knows exactly what I'm talking about. Grenada getting tough over there.
Yeah.
Getting tough over there, right?
Yeah.
Right, because you got new ownership here, and their values are a little different than what the values were in the past, right? So you can get some slippage here, right?
Yeah.
So we have some strategy, because we got land behind the Y, and people always ask, why are you not developing that? Because everybody coming to town said, we ain't putting no money over there because you got this thing over here behind you that's, Somebody tell me what's happening here. I can't tell you the number of times Donald and I have sat in meetings and people have told us, come back to me when you figure this out. So we're gonna commit to coming up with a real strategy here for what I thought was just an area is really locked to a bigger area, right?
Yep.
So until you figure out the bigger area, that's where we are. So I just wanna let you know, we're going in the right direction. I know it took a little more time than I want to, but you need to know that this is what you invested in. 12 years ago, I said, I'm gonna make this thing pop, right? This is where we continue to do that. We're gonna make this thing happen, right? Nobody's taking their hands off the wheel. You cannot take your hands off the wheel here because it is just too much at risk, too much at stake. And people here deserve everything that they get out of the soul, everything you get out of the beach, everything you get out there, you're gonna get here. One thing you got there, you ain't gonna get her grooving here, I'm gonna tell you that now. You're gonna be a whisk party, you're not gonna get that either, right? I do want to say before I go, I do want to recognize we lost a great one. We lost two great ones this year. Basically, from the city and the school, you know Miss Fanny Dean? Yeah, so we lost Miss Fanny Dean this year. And we lost longtime friend and building commissioner Melvin Lester this year. So I see Mr. Lester's wife. We stand, Ms. Lester. So both of them were connected, not just in the jobs they did. They were connected to this community through kids, right? Doing things that others didn't do or wouldn't do. And they just stayed to fight and fought the fight, right? And so we lost two big losses this year, and I just want to make sure that we recognize them. And also, I do want to say, there's a levy on the ballot tomorrow. It is a levy from 2002. It's just a continuation of the police and fire levy that we use to supplement the high cost of providing public service, right? It's a pittance to what it costs, but it's helpful, right? So, if you'd be so kind and consider it, as you go to the poll, if you hadn't voted as of yet, to at least consider it and know what it's for, right? It is for the it really is, you're paying for it for yourself. That's what it is. Right, so, before we do the 90 plus recognition real quick, I'm gonna ask for a moment of silence for all those that have passed on. If we could just have a moment of silence for those that have passed on. Thank you. God bless each and every one. I'm gonna turn it over to Jennifer for the recognition of the 90. I need Sterling, Ben, Wes, Herb, Ben. We're gonna run these flowers around the people that don't have to come up.